Welcome to the series Vitamins for Whole Health, short lessons on the vitamins that keep our bodies functioning optimally. I'm Thomas Lemke, registered dietitian and the clinical director of Whole Health. This installment is about vitamin E. Vitamin E is also most commonly known as alpha-tocopherol, although that is to simplify things considerably. This fat-soluble molecule is part of a family of 8 tocochromonols, including alpha, beta, gamma, and delta tocopherols, and alpha, beta, gamma, and delta tocotrienols, all of which have varying levels of vitamin-like activity. Nonetheless, alpha-tocopherol is the most biologically active. Well, one form of alpha-tocopherol, anyway. Alpha-tocopherol is what's known as a chiral molecule, meaning that it exists in non-identical mirror images of itself, just like how your hands are mirror images and thus cannot be perfectly overlaid on one another. This is why we refer to chiral molecules as either left or right-handed. Alpha-tocopherol must be right-handed to be biologically active for humans, but it has 3 pairs of hands. Each of those dashed lines you see on the slide hold a methyl group, which can exist in 2 different configurations. And we need all of them to be right-handed to work best for us. This is important because when we synthesize vitamin E out of petroleum products, it produces all of these options in equal measure, meaning only 1 part in 8, or 12.5%, is perfectly biologically useful vitamin E. Now that said, any tocopherol with the leftmost methyl group on your slide there, in the right-handed position, has some level of biological activity, even if diminished, and thus these are all currently considered to be vitamin E according to FDA regulators. Hence the new name, 2R alpha tocopherol. But I'm digressing too much. Let's get back to basics. Tocopherol comes from the Greek words tokos, meaning birth, and pherein, meaning to carry, because at the time of its discovery it was found that this nutrient is essential for rats to bear their young to term. Vitamin E is classified as a chain-breaking antioxidant. That is, an antioxidant which scavenges reactive oxygen and reactive nitrogen species directly, rather than by acting indirectly, like other antioxidants, through mediation by chelating iron ions or inducing the body's natural protective factors. Vitamin E scavenges free radicals that would otherwise oxidize the fats in your body, particularly the ones in your cell membranes. In so doing, it protects against the damaging effects of inflammation and oxidation. This cell membrane protection also promotes cell-to-cell communication. Since cells do communicate with one another through the membrane, it stands to reason that keeping said membrane healthy would have the knock-on benefit of enhancing communication, and that's exactly what it does, which is particularly important for our immune system as it tracks what is going on in our bodies. Now, as far as vitamin E deficiency, I will say a severe vitamin E deficiency can manifest in one or more of the following: retinopathy, or damage to the retina of the eyes that can impair vision; peripheral neuropathy, that is, damage to the peripheral nerves, usually in the hands or feet, causing weakness or pain; ataxia, a loss of control of body movements; or decreased immune function, leaving you more susceptible to infections. The groups at the most risk of a vitamin E deficiency are as follows: those with stark malnutrition, because again, if you're not taking in nutrients, you're not taking in the vitamin E class of nutrients. Some genetic defects can impair vitamin E absorption or utilization inside of the body. And those, of course, with fat malabsorption syndromes, where they may be eating, but the fat and fat-soluble vitamin absorption is just not there, can have a deficiency as well. How much vitamin E do you need? Well, for males, 15 milligrams per day, and for females, the same thing, unless you're lactating, in which case 19 milligrams per day is the recommended amount. Now, good sources of vitamin E include sunflower seeds, almonds, peanuts, dark leafy greens, avocados, hazelnuts, olive oil, cranberry sauce, tomato sauce, and more, because this is not a comprehensive list. So a casual internet search will provide many more options. Vitamin E has no toxicity, the amounts you can reasonably get from food. However, there are supplements on the market with quite high doses in them, and you should be aware that there is an increase in the risk of excess bleeding at higher doses of this nutrient. The main risk category here is those who are taking anticoagulant drugs. The reason for this is that high doses of vitamin E can interfere with the activity of vitamin K and tend to overthin the blood and thus increase bleeding risk as a result. Furthermore, it cannot be ruled out that supplemental vitamin E could also overthin the blood if taken in conjunction with other blood thinning compounds, such as those found in, for instance, garlic, curcumin, or ginkgo biloba. For this reason, the upper limit for adults has been set to 1,000 international units or IU daily. Vitamin E, and by the way, that's over 600 milligrams, so quite a high amount. Now, vitamin E is very unlikely to have additional benefits at that high of a dose, and especially benefits that aren't already achieved with smaller doses anyway. So I don't know why you would take that much, but if you're tempted, just know that you should only exceed that threshold on advice from your personal physician who is familiar with your physical condition. Thank you for viewing the vitamin E entry in the series, Vitamins for Whole Health. We'll see you around.